Hello, dear Starshines. Christina here with Lightbody Academy. Welcome, welcome, welcome to today's lunchtime chats. Hello, hello, hello. I'll pause for a moment and give everybody a second to connect and say hi. Let us know where you're coming from. It's always good to hear where you guys are at. And who knows, you might have a star seed somewhere else in your neighborhood that you never knew was there. So I encourage you guys, say hi, let me know you're there, and encourage, check out your location, share all that good stuff. So for those of you who are new, my name is Christina, and I'm an acceleration expert. And we are here to talk about those topics and issues that are significant for us starseeds, way showers, new paradigm visionaries. We have very particular gifts and abilities that are not embraced by our larger human family. Therefore, we have perspectives and understandings that are unique to us. And therefore, how we experience these daily challenges, we need to look at them, deal with them differently than perhaps how, the norm of humanity is handling it, right? So that's what we're here to talk about. And I'm here to provide, to the best of my abilities, a liberated perspective to some of these topics and issues. Okay, so I encourage everybody to come on board, ask questions, and share with share about what's going on with you. Where are the stress points for you today? There's a few things that I have on my agenda to talk about. One is, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but there is a large population of humans, starseeds and not, that are experiencing extreme ringing in the ears and in the head. And I want to talk about that and my thoughts about what that is and what we could be doing about it. So I want to talk about that. And then also, I want to share some signs that I'm noticing that the universe at large is revving up to something. The celestial world all around, the celestial world that is that ocean that this planet is flying through in the solar ring is revving up to something. And I think some of you guys have noticed the Schumann resonance spikes and all these solar flares that have been happening. So I want to share some perspective around that. And then lastly, information warfare. Okay. Yeah. So, last week I gave my talk on, that whole thing, weaponized information and all this stuff. But this time I want to talk about in the guise of like a survival guide to how to navigate when there is intense information warfare going on all around you and impacting the people you love. Okay, so those are the kinds of things that are at the top of my mind to share, but I also would like to hear about you guys. What is the big stressor for you today? What did you wake up with that was really in your face and in your lap to have to figure out a way to navigate or deal with, or maybe transmute, bring peace to? What's been happening? For those of you who are on our emailing list, thank you so much. I had a couple to the announcements that I'm back to doing live talks. Woohoo! I'm super excited about that, and I thank you for the response to our email announcement. And what I want to say about that is that if you are in the Ohio area, and I suppose you could be in the surrounding states as well. Gas prices, they're really high right now, right? So, if you are in this immediate vicinity and you have a community of people that you would really love to have me come in and do a talk and or activation with, please hit us up. Give us an email. Let us know that you're interested in something like that. Maybe we can arrange some sort of an agreement where I can come in and talk with your folks, facilitate an activation or a little mini half-day workshop or something. And the place to contact us for that is wecare@lightbodyacademy.com. And Beverly, if you're here and you're catching me saying this, please post that email address in the comments for me, please. I would appreciate that. So because I really need to get back to connecting with people. I don't know about you guys, this solitary thing, it's like I've had enough of it. Though I'm really blessed to be able to travel through the country and be in nature and do those things. I still feel like, connecting us as a tribe, connecting in person is really valuable and very helpful for us in, working. And you guys know what a relief it is to meet somebody that's on a similar wavelength, right? So the more of us us that we come in contact with really helps. I think in our daily outlook in the world, it helps us with that feeling of not being as alone as sometimes we feel we are. I mean, ultimately, we're never alone. We have an entire entourage of interdimensional beings and all sorts of assistance on a universal level for our process, but it doesn't mean that as humans we don't feel alone sometimes, especially when we're not necessarily following the same program as everybody else. And there's a wonderful quote that I came across. It was something along the lines of an apology for being a sane person in the insane world. Oh yeah, it was like, world, I apologize for being sane in this insane world. I believe it is an Emily Dickens quote, but I'm feeling that, sometimes our views, how we see things, are so different than the folks in the program. We do feel a bit apologetic for not, for being so far away from where they're at. Maybe you guys can feel me on that. Hello, dear sister Polly. Good to see you. And Beverly, good to see you. I'm glad you're here. Carol, hello from Minnesota. And Tammy from Kansas. Tammy goes on to say, today I woke up wonderfully to a beautiful snowfall. Wow, snowfall in Kansas. Okay. It was more yesterday. I woke up irritated and had to work longer than usual to get back to center. Okay. So she's alluding to, normally when she wakes up with anxiety, fear, agitation, or whatever, she has some sort of practice that she uses to get herself back to center. And she was noticing that the irritation was really strong yesterday and it was harder to get back. Yeah. So it turns out there's some pretty massive Schumann resonance spikes. And what that does, and, guys, all right. So what we need to keep in mind is that, our brain waves, how our brain functions, it's electromagnetic. So when we experience electromagnetic storms, stellar storms, it impacts our brain waves. When we experience anything that alters the electromagnetics of our planet, it impacts our brain and our physical body. So, this goes along with the talk that I'm doing this weekend about mastering dreamtime, what it means to dream the world into being, and exactly what we could be doing to reclaim our power of dream this world into being. And one of the segments of that talk is I dive much deeper into the brainwaves and electromagnetics and how this impacts us. And so touching on this thing that she's talking about, that irritation, right? This is because we're being pushed rather roughly into a frequency that is not normal for us, that is not comfortable for us. So for some people, that means, the brain waves that are getting activated within them are not something that they're used to, and their ego driver that really prefers the beta frequencies of the linear world is frustrated because it cannot do anything. It's helpless to alter what is happening to the biosuit and to the electromagnetics of the biosuit in the brain. Right. So when we have major events like that, it impacts us intensely. The best thing that we can do is practice what we need, practice lifestyle, adapt into our lifestyle things that give us a more flexible mind, things that allow us to touch the abstract, which is, allowing those delta theta frequencies to be more active within our mind, within our brain. And the more flexible we can allow our mind to be, our ego driver and our body to be, then the less intensity we get when we have these big waves. Now we're having solar storms and Schumann resonance big spikes, right? So it's like a double whammy. And if you're on really strong ley lines, it's a triple whammy because you're close to the epicenter. It's the energy lines that are getting activated. And for a lot of people, we're noticing that as these energy lines get activated, soon follows a wave of humans that wake up a little bit more than they were before. And I have an example of a human that I saw who's waking up. And he is a rather famous social media personality. He's a liberal Democrat guy. I can't remember, Reich. His name's Reich. I can't remember the full name though. And I remember I used to listen to some of his stuff because I thought they had a really grounded take. But during all the COVID shenanigans and stuff, you know, he was like definitely in the narrative, and I was very turned off by listening to the things that he would say. And just recently, I saw a post of his, and he is like full on questioning the narrative of the war and what's going on. And he pointed out that like five point something million dollars worth of investments is what yes, Richard Reich, that's his name. Thank you, Polly. Yeah, I posted it in the group. I posted it in both the Rise group and the Facebook group. I didn't post it though in the Telegram group because I was short on time, so I only could post in a couple places. So when I saw that, I'm like, aha, even an ultra, you know, he's very super mainstream in the narrative. He's waking up to these pieces, and I feel like that's a great sign. So this irritation that's unexplainable, you know, then that, you know, this is part of what's going on. Your electromagnetic habitual frequency is getting pushed into another kind of level of frequency, and that can be very irritating. And it can also result in sleepless nights. It can result in like a severe restless leg syndrome kind of thing. It could be nightmares can happen. You can, you know, the typical way your body experiences stress, that's kind of, you know, what the kinds of things that are getting triggered. And if you get irritable when you're super stressed, then you're definitely, you know, that irritability is close to the surface when these kinds of things are going on. But, you know, even though on a stellar level, Earth level, planetary level, solar ring level, there's big shifts happening that are pushing a lot of stress on our bodies. This is actually, in my opinion, in my perspective of things, this is actually a good thing, because we are not. It is very difficult for the powers that be that are introducing frequencies into our world that are not healthy, that are not good for us. Okay. Now, as a starseed, you know, we are, well, all right, I'm just going to say starseed as a blanket term. Whether you identify with it or not, it doesn't matter. It's really a blanket term to indicate that you're awake on a much larger level, because on a soul level, you're here for something different than to live the program, right? You're here to advance. You know, to be here for this transition of the turning of the ages. So in some ways you have a lot of advanced perceptions and abilities, you know, okay, that the average human doesn't have. That's really what I'm putting in the basket of starseed. So starseeds, we're aware of other life forms. We're aware of galactic interdimensional life forms. We're aware of life on many different levels. And so way back within in the history of humanity, if we can agree that there's been a sense that there's been manipulation going on, consciousness manipulation, and that is in the myth and the story of the fall of consciousness that every single religion and spiritual outfit, let's say, talks about. Okay, so. And the reason, and what's happening is a lot of people feel like a similar kind of manipulation is happening now. They are purposely dumbing down humanity through social media and rewarding ego driver behaviors and poo-pooing on those that have, you know, that have independent thought and independent will and strong, and, you know, all this other stuff. So there's this interesting manipulation going on, and the fact that all this is happening on a universal solar level at the same time is an indication to me that it's not working. The manipulation that is happening this time around is not penetrating the way it has in the past. So if all this stuff was going on 20 years ago, I imagine that a lot more of humans would be susceptible, as far as what I mean susceptible as in they're believing that this is the truth, right? That a lot more back then would accept the narratives than what's happening right now. And that's because we are all advancing together en masse. So it's going to get even more crazy, I suspect. I imagine that, they're just going to keep amping up the frequencies more and more and more. And it's beyond information warfare, guys. And this is partially what I want to talk up to you guys about with that, with those frequency manipulations. So we have our bodies, minds, and spirits getting bombarded with these solar and Schumann resonant type frequencies, all that's happening. But then there's also this information warfare going on that has people deeply divided. So the polarity game has just been amped up even more. And then there's something else. And this is this question I want to pose to you guys. Who here, and please respond and let me know, who here has been experiencing extreme ringing in the ears, and even beyond that, like ringing in the center of your head? Who's noticed tones happening, ringing happening? Some tones are super high pitched. Some are kind of like altering. Some feel like they're actually going right to the middle of the head. Okay. Please let me know if any of you guys are experiencing this. Because I have a theory. I have a working hypothesis. And I would really love to hear from you guys around that. All right. So, but before I share the hypothesis, because I'm going to wait for a response, and then I'll dive into it. So, all this manipulation's going on many different levels, and I feel like the universe is responding in a lot of ways. And there's these, when you're at a certain frequency within your beingness, like electromagnetically, you're at a certain level of coherence. You're not as susceptible to things like a regular human would be. Okay, when I say regular human, I'm talking about a human that full on buys the program. We're the only life we're most likely the only life in this universe. There's a God in the sky that gives directions. There's the government is what it says it is. War is what it said, what we're told it's about. You know what I mean? They're just buying the program all the way. That's what I'm calling regular human. So I think that those types of people that are in that kind of frequency are a lot more vulnerable because there's a lack of coherence within their system. So really it all comes down to coherence and within yourself for as far as being resilient and not as vulnerable to these pieces. All right, I'm getting some responses coming in. Thank you guys for talking back. So we have dear sister Polly saying, ringing in the head. Yes, pretty high pitched. All right, Beverly says, yes, exclamation point, and dizziness for a few seconds before I snap out of it. Yeah, I had that a couple days ago. Danielle says, I haven't really, but I did dream my ear was bleeding last night. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, dear sister Tammy says, yes, constant ringing in the ears, different pitches at times, and hearing from some tones that are new. All right, and then Carol says, I'm not hearing anything. Is that a good or bad thing? No, yeah, so it's kind of a sensation, going on. Ringing right now as I'm listening to you, Christina. Okay, great. Right, so there's different kinds of ringings in the ears, right? There's different kinds of buzzings that go on, right? Oh, dear sister Lisa's chiming in. Yes, exclamation point. The buzzing, I think there's supposed to be the word think. Buzzing will happen abruptly and piercing. I've been having to harmonize with it, perceiving it as urgent information. Okay, excellent. Okay. Right. So let me break down some of the differences, right? Because there's some ringing and buzzing that goes on that is of a stellar origin, a galactic origin, if you will. And some of that, it's like a consciousness, a consciousness frequency that's reaching us via a buzz or a ring. There's that sort of thing. And that can be kind of intense. It can make us dizzy. It can make us not feel great. And actually, in fact, dear sister Barbara Hanclow talked about her waking up to the download with Satya, which is her Pleiadian aspect, and that's in a simultaneous incarnation in the Pleiades. When that connection made, she experienced it as extreme tinnitus. And what she used was her creativity to flush out the information. So if you're getting buzzing or ringing in the ears that is information, you can flush it out by art, dance, poetry. Okay, she drew a drawing that encapsulated the energy, not too different than those squigglies that we do to analyze dreamtime, to track into dreamtime. And from that drawing held the energy, and it got enough of the charge out that she wasn't, the intensity lightened up. So if you are, and then of course that continued to flush out, and she ended up writing a whole series of books, and that was like an entire body of work for like many decades. So that kind of information download that's experienced as buzzing and ringing is something that you can mitigate by letting it out and expressing it with your creativity. And that will mitigate pretty quickly if you do that to flush it out. So it's you can't tell the quality of like the benevolence or maliciousness, let's say, of the tones until you start doing something with it. Once you start doing something with it, then it starts to flush out, oh, this is really not such a great thing to be, that I'm touching on. Like, for example, a lot of people, I don't know if you guys have noticed, the 5G networks are full on up and running. If you have AT&T and you had a Flipasaurus phone or had an old phone that was not 5G compatible, they mailed you a new phone and it just went online. I think it was last week, right? So a lot of people are noticing that there's intense ringing in the head and ears. There's a lot of stress right through the eustachian tubes. Being close to a saturated 5G network. Okay. Now, I know that freaks a lot of people out, and it should, because there's a lot of people's bodies cannot handle that kind of stress, and they're going to, have the symptoms that have already been explored and explained through science of what happens when you're exposed to EMF field too long and your body's not able to recover from it and starts going into deterioration cycle. There's lots of research on that. It's not really well known because, of course, it gets censored. You see, censorship has been around long before COVID, guys. And I'm sure a lot of you guys know that. Anybody in the holistic health field absolutely knows that, right? But anyway, so that information was getting censored for many years, but you can still find some TED Talks and some people sharing their scientific research, and even some people testifying before city councils with the information about the impact of EMF fields. Anyway, so when you have buzzing and ringing going on in the ears, there are things that we could be doing to assist with flushing it out. And then when in the flushing out, we can see, sense with our intuitive awareness if it's a malicious or benevolent kind of thing. Obviously, the example I gave that Barbara expressed of her experience, that would be more of perceived as a beneficial thing, because she was able to flush out this body of work that has served humanity 1,000 times over, right? So, but there's also like the 5G, the ringing that can happen when being inundated in 5G fields. Now, I don't know if I would consider that malicious, because I don't know if there's an intent to cause harm, but there's definitely, at best, a negligence to acknowledge the possibility of harm, right? So that's there's that kind of thing. So when you flush out the ringing in the ears, when you flush out the buzzing, what you'll notice the creations, and as you're flushing it out, you'll become aware, okay, this is definitely something that is information that's benefiting me in something I've asked for as far as serving the benefit of humanity. But then also in that exact same process, flushing it out, you'll be able to recognize that there's something malicious within the frequency. And there is an example many years ago, and I think it was from, all right, yeah. So from Orion, many, I'm talking a long time ago, before really we had the sense of time that we have now, there was frequencies introduced to the solar ring that wove fear into all the life forms here. And those that were at a frequency who were susceptible were impacted. Okay. And I'm talking about going all the way back to the ant people, the original beings of this planet in the form of it, from the time that it came to circle around the sun that we know now. Okay. And that was a frequency that introduced the fear program. So that frequency penetrated and proliferated. I can't talk today. Exponentially proliferated through the field, through the body, and therefore it became part of the reality that those beings lived. Now, for those of you who are aware of ancient Earth history, the idea of the ant people is not anything new. Perhaps what I'm saying about frequency might be a little bit new, but so that would be an example of, in their creation, as they were moving, they ended up, moving through time and creating as a community, as a society, as an organism, that frequency of fear within them started to manifest in the things that they were creating. And the long story short, that they were eventually enslaved. They were scattered throughout the cosmos as slave beings, as master builders. And then, according to Hopi lore and some Quechua prophecy, the blue people went and collected all the ant beings that were enslaved throughout the cosmos, brought them all back home. Those that were ready to live in peace, those that were ready to live in harmony with the earth, Pachamama, the great mother goddess, so to speak, came back to this planet. And those that were still in the paradigm of warring settled on Mars. So in those stories, it shows that that frequency perhaps was not something that was insurmountable. There was a choice somewhere within that. Okay. So when I'm talking about weaponized frequencies, it might freak people out, but I'm saying this so you guys are aware that you have choices. You have things that you could be doing to mitigate. Okay. Now I have a video on my YouTube channel where I talk about exactly what you do to mitigate buzzing and tinnitus. But right now things have elevated, next level, and some of those techniques won't actually work unless they do, right? So we don't know until you try it and it works or not. But as I was saying, in the fleshing out of the frequency, you can discover if it's malicious or benign or actual information coming to you from another consciousness, a higher consciousness. And when I say higher, I don't mean above you. I just mean that's more prevalent in another plane of reality, in another dimension of existence. As humans, we're multidimensional, but there are dimensions beyond what our human biosuit can process. So therefore, we need some mitigation when we're in contact with some really high level beings. Like when you get above the 14th dimension, the 14th level of plane of existence, whatever you want to call that, there's no form. So, beings are just kind of like blobs, blobs of light, so there's that kind of thing. All right. Thank you guys for responding to me. And hopefully this is a little bit helpful what I'm talking about. All right. So some of the things that you could be doing if you feel like you're being affected by the 5G thing is that there's actually lots of things to be doing. Earthing, walking barefoot on the ground as a regular daily detox is very helpful because it actually pulls the electric static out of your body. I'm around electronics a lot because of my work. So I have an earthing mat that I have like a wire that goes out to a copper pipe that goes right to the ground. I'm on the second floor here. So I use this earthing mat all the time. And I remember it's pretty funny. My partner, was putting the pipe in for me and doing all this. He's like, now what's this for again? And I was explaining it to him and he's just like, are you sure that this works? And I'm like, yes, I'm positive that it works. And I don't know, his logical mind was on the fence about it. But then one day he was here doing an interview on Zoom, because he used the equipment because everything's set up here. And he's like, you know what, that mat, that absolutely makes a difference. He said he could tell the difference instantly. As soon as his foot touched it, he felt way better. He felt really good. So that's one thing that you could be doing to help mitigate the EMF pollution fields, depending on how, where you're at. Some people don't have access to walking barefoot on the ground on a daily basis. Those of us that do, we are extremely, extremely blessed, which I'm sure, we know that. Another thing you can be doing is pay attention to how much time you're spending on electronics. Don't sleep with electronics in your room. No, I won't even have I don't even do alarm clocks in my room. I want zero electronics in my room. So there's no, I'm a bit of a stickler about that. So there's that sort of thing. And then there's certain stones. There's like shungite and stuff like this that you can make sure you have on your body a lot. I've seen women that have like giant shungite, beads in their necklace and a great big rock. I've seen all sorts of things. So the humans have become really creative with ways to make shungite beautiful. But it's a dark stone that is known to be absorbing of EMF frequencies and also cleans water really well. And then, another thing you can do is work at your electromagnetic coherence. So what does that look like? What does electromagnetic coherence looks like? Well, quite easily, it's about being joyful, grateful, and loving. If you focus your thoughts, emotions, and intentions on those lines, then you will be able to create cohesiveness, electromagnetic cohesiveness in your energy field. That makes you so much stronger than, and then you're also unplugging from the stress, fear, and anxiety programs that our human family is getting bombarded with, right? So, you absolutely have choices. You could be doing that, right? Let's see. Is there another piece about the ringing in the ears? Okay, so the other thing we could be doing on a regular basis is taking detox baths. Now, what you use for detox, I think really needs to change sometimes. Always doing a salt bath is not always so great for your skin. But you can also, if you have plant allies, flower allies that you really love to work with, you can add that into the bath. So you could, reconnect with the natural world on a regular basis. That can also mitigate things. And also you can focus on what you can do to flood your house, your room, your office with negative ions. So negative ions is something that also mitigates that EMF. Lots of things create negative ions. Running water creates a negative ion. So a fountain, right? A small fountain. I have this little diffuser thing. I just love it. I run it all day, every day. And that creates negative ions here in my office, along with some other things. Salt lamps create negative ions. So it's not just one thing that is that solves all. It is a compilation of things that you put together that really builds. And then that way, you can overcome, let's say you cross that critical mass where the positive ion charge is no longer happening. In a way that impacts the physical field. It's really interesting because when our bodies absorb electricity, which it does, like, I don't know, if you're in front of the computer, you're absorbing the light, you're absorbing everything that's around you, you are absorbing through your skin, both visible and not, so when you are absorbing static energy, your own body begins to alter in its charge. Your own body becomes, the electromagnetic charge in your body becomes weakened, it becomes dampened, and you end up feeling, heavy, tired. You see what I mean? Unable to focus. Your energy just drains right out of you. That's because the metabolic activity that keeps your body running strong is not having the charge that it needs to have. In order for a really strong, positively charged field, you need to be surrounded by negative ions. When you're surrounded by positive ions, it actually impacts the positive charge of your own field, and you become weakened. So just some information to know what's going on here. And there are things that you could be doing about it. Nobody here is a victim. You guys are all infinite beings in a biosuit, and you all are equipped with exactly what you need to address the problems that are before you. And I know I've said that before, and it's kind of hard to accept, especially when you feel like you're a victim, because there are plenty of times where people feel like they're a victim of something. But once you step out of that charge, once you let yourself feel it all the way and step out of it and reach that rock bottom and reach that then what phase, then you're willing to look at solutions. Then you're willing to see what is right in front of you that could be helping you get over these pieces that are challenging you. All right, so cool. So here we go. So that was the frequencies. That was the ringing in the ears and all that stuff. So now let's tie this into some of the other stuff. The information warfare survival guide and the signs that I'm seeing about the universe is revving up to something. Now, those of you who've been listening to this for a while, you know that we have a program here in the Lightbody Academy called the Dreamtime Healing Project. Okay, this is really amazing work, guys. But I'm not really here to plug the project. What I just want to frame up some experiences that I have by doing this. So we have multiple dream labs and dream clinics, and this is small groups of people and larger groups of people. And over the several years, I've had the honor and the opportunity to track through many people's dreams. And this is a lot of where this information comes from. It's like when there's something that is pending on a universal level or on a solar ring level, when there's something out there getting ready to come and hit our human experience. All right, it starts off out here, and then it trickles through the dimensional realms until we're experiencing it in 3D. This is how I see it happening. And then what I've been noticing with the dream time and the tracking, because I have this amazing opportunity to track many dreams with lots of different star seeds. I can tell when there's something coming, if I can't tell, well, no, I'm saying that backwards. If the person who's having the dream can't tell at the time that they're having the dream and looking at the dream and tracking into it and feeling into it, by the time they're done with their dream share and having a group track it, they can tell. It reveals, right? So whenever there's something approaching, there's people dreaming about it already. You guys ever sign up for like an energy medicine intensive or something, and you feel the energy of it long before you ever show up there? You guys ever have that happen? Like you're going to a workshop and like the week before you're totally tweaked and you're, you know what I mean? You can feel that like something's really up in your system. That's because part of you is already processing that energy. Part of you is already there doing that work because it's energies outside of time and space. It's like the outer nesting dolls of who you are already engaged on those levels before your inner nesting doll of who you are in the here and now in a biosuit actually has the physical experience. This happens all the time. And when it comes to dream time, let's say the scope of which we can track goes even further. It can go out beyond even the cosmic arena. Some people are really deep dreamers. So from what I have witnessed in the tracking of many people's dreams, there is a pretty consistent theme that something big is coming. Something big is coming. And I'm saying that with a smile because my sense is that this something big is what we've all been waiting for. I feel like this is the piece that the powers that be are so terrified of, because it transcends any kind of control system that we have going on here on this planet. What do you do when you have the entire universe not saying yes? What do you do when you don't have the consensus of the universe? What do you do when you don't have the consensus of the sun? What happens when you no longer have the consensus of the planets in the solar ring to hold certain structures together? What happens when you don't have the planets, the Pachamama's yes to maintain life in a certain way anymore? Right? She shakes that life off like a flea. The sun can send a solar flare through the entire solar ring and end all life in any moment, right? So this is, and I'm not saying this is a fear thing. I'm saying this is as a good thing, because when you feel into the frequency of the Pachamama, of Mother Earth, you feel love. you feel connectedness, you feel home, right? This is the truth of who we are in these biosuits. And the similar thing, when you feel into the frequencies of the sun, it feels like a coming home. It's not a power over dance. All right. For some people who are in some holographic realities, you might feel as power over dance, but once you transcend that, then, it turns into the natural kingdom, the natural world, and that is actually full of harmony and grace. So it's because of what I'm tracking within these, within the Dreamtime, with the different people participating in the Dreamtime Healing Project, that I can feel pretty confident in saying that there's something beautiful approaching. There's something beautiful on its way. And it's not just for those who choose. It's not just for the chosen. It's not just for the awake. It's for everybody, all of the beings in the solar ring. Okay, so not just Pachamama and all the life upon her, but, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Saturn, Jupiter, all these beings are going to be equally impacted by whatever it is that's approaching. All right. Dear Sister Beverly says, 15-day trial. Darling, can you let me know what you're talking about with that? And Darren, welcome. He is joining the chats. He says, cool. I only missed the first 8 minutes. Oh, yeah. Cool. Welcome, Darren. And dear Sister Tammy says, flood our room with negative ions, such as diffuser, salt lamps, running water, possible indoor fountain, anything else to add to the list. Beautiful, peaceful music, have electronics running very, minimally. Burning things, having candles throws off lots of negative ions. If you have a fireplace, that will throw off lots of negative ions. If anybody else has some ideas on what produces negative ions on the topic that I'm talking about, please send them in the chat, share them with everybody. I would love to hear what you have to say too. And dear Sister Carol says, oh my, I'm getting full body chills and a big smile. Yay! Awesome. Good. I'm glad to hear that, Carol. Yeah, so something's on its way, but in the meantime, I'm not saying put your life on hold and wait for this to come. That's not what I'm saying at all. Because everything that we do, every second, and every day is important. Does have a significance. Okay, there is no such thing as hurry up and waiting when it comes to the role of a starseed in this world. Okay, everything that we do can potentially have an impact to be a betterment for humanity, to be a betterment for nature, okay, and all the creatures within nature that are our kin. Okay, so I'm not saying rest on your laurels at all. If anything, that means we need to make sure we're showing up full on with our passion, with our love, like full force, so we know that we've done everything that we possibly can in preparation of what's happening, what's on its way. What kinds of things can you do? Well, it's similar to the information warfare survival guide. Okay, so I'm just going to say some of these pieces, and I've said this stuff before, but in this context, maybe it'll land a little bit differently. So, information warfare. Now, what's the whole point? What's the big tool? What's the big leverage tool that information warfare uses against humanity? Fear. Right? It uses our emotions against us. That's the warfare, right? The information warfare. Hello, darling. Hello, Shanu. Good to see you. Let us know where you're from, if you want to, of course. So we're talking about information shared in order to elicit an emotional response. How do you deal with that? And then how do you deal when you're not plugged into that, but everybody around you is plugged into that? So this is the survival guide. So one of those pieces is that we need to, even though a lot of us feel solace or feel respite in completely withdrawing, right, and going into our own world or going into our own bubble, let's say it like that, where we are, staying in nature, we're staying away from people, we totally did that for most of 2021, my partner and I, but these times are not about us maintaining ourselves anymore. We have spent most of our lives figuring out what that's about. So now we can go into be with humanity having the wisdom that we know how to maintain ourselves in a healthy way, and then be who we be in community with other beings. Okay, so information warfare. Number one, know when you're getting astroturfed. If you guys don't know what that is, I encourage you to check out videos on YouTube about astroturfing. There's this one, she's a former news anchor that did an excellent TED talk on it. And it comes up right away when you search for it. So pretty much the big signs of astroturfing. In the past, it was used by pharmaceutical companies to manipulate people into taking meds that they were promoting, or to manipulate doctors and medical professionals into promoting meds to their patients. Okay, but then it also has been weaponized against the holistic energy industry to pretty much tear down holistic doctors and people who are really successfully treating ailments through holistic means. So the astroturfing started off as a weaponized system that they would use in the health industry, but then it spread, and nowadays it's about everything. It's the Ukrainian crisis, it's the COVID thing, the vaccine thing, the censorship stuff, all this stuff. They're astroturfing. So everybody is having an emotional reaction to this information. And the more you engage in that, thinking that you're being told the truth, the more you get hooked in, right? It's very easy to get hooked in by the stuff because it's juicy, right? I go in there too sometimes, but I feel like I can go in and engage and then disengage just as easily and not be juiced, not get the juice from it, right? So recently there was this excellent example of a conspiracy theory that got turned into conspiracy fact within a week. And the conspiracy theory was, and I say a week of me finding out about it, I don't know if the information was around more than a week, so take that for what it's worth. It's the conspiracy theory was that the US and the Ukraine had biolabs in the Ukraine, and that part of this whole Russian thing was to attack the biolabs or whatever. So a lot of people was like, yeah, that's BS, la 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 la, right? So, and I didn't find that much interesting. It was just in the pool of information. So but then not long after that, a very credible source was sharing a testimony by the Undersecretary of the State, indicating that we have biolabs with the Ukraine. And the original broadcast of that information, the person that did it got deplatformed off Twitter. And then another person echoed it on YouTube and got deplatformed off YouTube. So that information instantly got censored, and the persons that were releasing the information slammed. And now a week later comes out that it was totally true, right? So this is actually a really good thing, because this is showing us the energies are not conducive to perpetuating the lies that are triggering people, right? So people may get triggered by the truth, but eventually they will get liberated by it. The reason why they're triggered by the truth is because it's going against what they believed has been true, right? That's why they get triggered by it. As soon as you get over the attachment of your belief being true and realizing it actually has there's actually something on the other side, then it's a liberation. So when it comes to navigating, you need to, one, be conscious about emerging yourself in that information. Be aware that you're going into a manipulation scenario. The emotions, everything is meant to trigger you on all sides of the fence. That's without exception. And I'm not talking about, just the mainstream media. The alternative media is just as juicing, right? Just as outrageous. Okay. So when you go into it, be aware, be purposeful that I'm going into this battlefield of information and I'm going to be triggered emotionally. So just be aware of that. And once you are aware of that, then you're going to take a lot of this information with a grain of salt. You're going to be a lot more patient. You're going to be like, oh, I haven't heard that one before. Well, if it's true, maybe it'll show up in another source, right? Then you'll try to corroborate the information. And that is if you even want to put that kind of energy into it. But so once you are able to be confronted with that information that is emotionally charging and not have a strong emotional charge on a subconscious level, you are supporting other humans that are experiencing a similar information grid. And that's because sympathetic resonance is a thing. All right. Collective consciousness works with sympathetic resonance. So when you are engaging in a consciousness grid of information, such as the weaponized, warfare, information warfare, and you are not letting yourself, and you're staying in your center, and you're not letting yourself get strongly triggered, you are actually you're actually connected with a bunch of other people on that consciousness grid, and you are on a subconscious level an example of not being triggered. So if there's some part of that person inside their subconscious that wants to connect with that resonance that you are holding, it'll be in a subconscious way or maybe in a conscious way. It depends, and the more of us that are staying in our centers while we're engaging those consciousness grids, the more eventually we reach critical mass and we totally shut down those grids. And I kind of told my story backwards. That part was supposed to come first, but and this example with the biolabs in Ukraine, that's my example of how that works. All right. The information goes out there. It's highly inflammatory. It's highly charged. There's all this thoughts and opinions and emotions about it. And then the lie cannot proliferate because there's so many people within the resonance of of themselves and their truth. Okay. And there's a few other examples of that, and that's why the truths are coming out really, really fast right now, right? Because that's the sympathetic resonance in the collective is not in congruency with the network of the program, with the lies, with the programming. You see what I mean? So no matter who you are on a political level or who you are on, on any of these issues, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That what matters is that you understand and notice that you're getting emotionally triggered. That's what's important. All right, there's a bunch of great things being said, and I want to check in on that and shut off this vibration because people are calling me. All right. So, dear sister, let's see. Here we go. Hello. Oh, okay. So Shanu says that she's from Jersey. Welcome, welcome. All right. Tammy says, I'm so excited when our microwave quit working now, I could dispose of it without getting flack for doing that and never having one in our home again. Yeah, I know. I'm definitely not for the whole microwave thing, though I do understand the convenience of it, but really it's bad news. Anyway, Darren says, I like to add a ground sage to my incense sticks and burn that with or before meditations. Okay, very, very good. Yes, and dear sister Lisa Marie, negative ions. She says I use 16-ounce mason jars with a stiff solution of pink Himalayan salt and water from our land. She has water on her land she can use. Oh, and over time, crystals form inside and out of the jar. Okay, so she's talking about for mitigating and creating negative ions. And dear sister Tammy says, interesting, Lisa, I will try that when I can get it to the creek, our natural spring, to gather water. It would be interesting to compare the two. Oh yeah, because water carries information, and anything that crystallizes from that water is another form of that information. So different water sources are going to provide different shapes and forms of crystals, right? So it's going to absolutely be different because the information in the water is different. Yeah, isn't that cool? All right. Let me keep going on the survival guide. Okay, so when you are not buying into the narrative, and then as we know through the COVID shenanigans, not buying into narrative, being neutral became a very dangerous thing too. People would accuse you of doing things because you were not on one side or the other. They would accuse you of I don't know, all sorts of things. I got accused of being a white supremacist Trumper at one point in time because I was taking a neutral stance on things. That's how highly charged it can be. Dear Sister Shanu says, Hidden Messages of Water is a wonderful book. Yes, I agree. That is too. And there's another woman out of Australia, Joanne Lewis from our group was posting for a while where she was exposing a glass of water, holding something in front of a glass of water, like a leaf or an acorn, something like that, like passing it through. So it was showing the image through the glass of water. And then actually it wasn't a glass, it was something else that had flexibility. And then she would put it into the freezer, and the image that she passed that water through would actually be frozen in the water. It was super, super cool. If you guys remember that, we can ask Joanne maybe to post that information again. Anyway, so when these narratives are highly charged to the point where if you're not agreeing, they're in that program. If you're not for us, you're against us. Now this is where your presence is even more important. And I don't mean to take the devil's advocate and start a fight. And I don't mean to lie and sympathetically say yes when you mean no. I don't mean anything like that. What I'm talking about is stating your truth, right? And what is your truth? What is your truth in this? And you can say something. You can say, ask questions. You can ask questions as far as, question their narrative. Like, all right, well, you can say, well, I heard that same news story too. And I asked myself some questions and I realized it just didn't make sense. So I don't believe it. You can say it like that. I started asking myself some questions and it seemed like, yeah, it's not really true. And then you can go on to ask them the same questions you asked yourself and see where they come. If that's even something that you want to invest your time and energy to. If it's someone you love who's in your inner circle, absolutely, you need to invest the time and energy to help a brother out, right? If it's someone that's, off in the outskirts, then, you decide, use your discernment, what kind of bandwidth you have to engage with them, of course. But right now, humanity is so ripe to the awakening. It's, they need us to be in the collective. They need us to be a part of their lives. Even if what we stand for just pisses them off beyond get out, it doesn't matter. That's their programming talking. On a soul level, on a heart level, they need help. They need assistance. Okay. So we are starseeds, way showers, new paradigm visionaries. We are that assistance. Not that we're here to save the world. Absolutely not. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we need to be in the authentic truth of who we are. Just be that. It's our beingness that will help them out. Okay. And the lifestyle that we have to maintain ourselves so we can be what we are, right? That has an impact too, in a very practical way. There's, I don't know about you guys, but, I have a really conscious diet right now. So that means all of the money that we spend goes towards organic, local produce. It goes towards, restaurants that cater to vegans. You know what I mean? So it's like our lifestyle has a ripple effect economically. And I'm in a rural place. You would wonder, how in the world can I sustain something like this in such a rural place? Well, it's possible. And now that we're here on a regular basis, it's like, people are, because there's a lot more human connection, mom and pop kind of connection, people are accommodating. We can go up to the local five and dime and say, hey, can you carry this brand of such and such? I'll buy it. And they'll do it, because there's a very human thing going on here. So what I'm saying is that you're here for a purpose beyond the working thing. You're here for a purpose to be a benefit to the collective. But then there's another tier of purpose. And dear Sister Shanu is saying, like, how do we know our purpose, right? And that, so there's a couple tiers to this. Number one, it's be a benefit to your surroundings, to humanity. What can you be doing on a daily basis to be a benefit to your brothers and sisters of humanity? That's the number one purpose of Starseed, right? But then there's some underlying purposes in that, and that's as far as, what do you do with your bandwidth? What do you do with your time? time? What do you do with your focus? What do you do with your passion? Okay. And the biggest piece to revealing that is getting back to that coherence, that electromagnetic coherence only can happen when you are truthful with who you are. Okay. So fake gratitude doesn't do it. You guys know what I'm talking about. The people are so positive about everything. And then if you mention anything that might be a challenge, it's like they totally tweak on you, right? That's fake gratitude. That's not real gratitude. That's gratitude from the mind. That's feeding a belief system and projecting it, right? It's not being it. When you are truly being it and a challenge comes, your heart just gets bigger. You get bigger with the challenge. You show up for the challenge. You're driven. You can't stop yourself from showing up, right? That's when it's in your heart space. That's when it's the truth to who you are. So when it comes to traversing the world and figuring out your purpose, you have to unlearn everything you think you know about yourself. Okay. All the things that you were taught that you can and cannot do, you have to let go of that and discover who you are without the safety, without the, what do they call it? Without the training wheels, right? Number one, you're not here to get a job, pay bills, die, and pay taxes. That's not why you're here. You're here for a much bigger purpose than that. There's something that you can creatively bring to the world that will change people's lives. Okay. And you don't get there by working a 9-to-5. Now, working 9-to-5 might be a stepping stone to get things someplace, but that's not ultimately what you're there to do. And there's a lot of people that, have a successful 9-to-5 and feel like they've made it and then realize, they're living a hollow life, right? So it's not about that. All the priorities that we've been giving of what a successful person looks like is not true. Okay, I know I'm going over, guys. Sorry about that. I just want to not leave this question open like that. So your purpose, there's layers to it. Number one, what can you do to be a benefit to all of humanity right here and right now? And that is be the truth of who you are. Be how you be, right? That's the first step. And then when you want to figure out how to live a life that is true to you in every way, that's authentic to you, that is a journey. And that journey only really happens when you bust out of the control system, when you bust out of the system of what you think is. Okay. That's the big piece. Star seeds, and this is what I'm encouraging all star seeds. We're going to achieve what it is our dreams are, what our passions are, when we are the boss, when we are the entrepreneur, when we are the department head, when we are the ones calling the shots, spending the money, and aiming everybody's focus as a team, right? So there are some people that really are passionate about green energy. They're running with that. There are people that are super passionate about alternative education. They're running with that. There's some people who like me are passionate about waking people up to the power of their dream time. I'm rocking that, right? So it's what you create that is in alignment with the truth of who you are. And that's your compass, and that's going to change from moment to moment, to year, but ultimately they all feed into each other. It all complements each other until eventually you get to an accomplished body of work, so to speak. And then that's when you see your purpose. You really recognize your purpose in a retrospect kind of way. And once you recognize it, then you can see it in the here and now way. Let's see if this makes sense why I'm saying it. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in for today's lunchtime chats. If you want to come to any of those live talks that I'm doing, I encourage you to check them out. If you're in the Ohio, PA area, I'll be doing a talk on the power of reclaiming your dream time, what it means to be dreaming your world into being. That will be this Saturday at 3 p.m. in Columbus. And then I'll be doing another talk the following day at noon, and I'll be talking about the keys to accelerating your psychic intuitive abilities. And then the weekend after that, dear sister Sherry Lynn is partnering with another dear sister starshine named Sherry. There is a wellness center called Stoneworks in Erie, PA. Well, I'll be doing another talk, and then in that particular setting, I'll be offering some little mini consults too. So if you guys are in that area, I encourage you to come, say hi, give me a hug, let me know. I'd love to see you in person. Dear sister Shanu, yeah, visiting Jersey. I could. So I do, in the beginning of this talk, I offered an invitation to email us if you have a group of people that you would like to bring me in to talk with. I'm open for doing something like that. So let us know, and we'll see what we can do. All right, darlings. Thank you. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Bye-bye. Have a good one.